morning, everyone. How are you all? I hope you all are doing well. And this is your faculty, CA Rohit Grover, and a qualified CMA, and welcoming you all in the another lecture on CMA Inter Marathon lectures. So today we are going to wind up two topics. One is known as Minimum Wages Act 1948, and another one is known as the Payment of Wages Act, right? Now, in the Minimum Wages Act, we have to understand a very few concepts. It is not that big chapter. It's a very small chapter. Now, what are the things we have to understand? First of all, we have to understand the objectives of the Minimum Wages Act, right or not? You all know that workers are very much, having a low wages and all. So, what the Laborer Acts or what the Labor Commissioners or what the Labor Tribunals have done that, they have created a minimum level of wages which are required to be given to them compulsorily. Are you getting the point? That so that they can have their a good subsistence level. So that minimum level of wages we have to provide them, right? Now, state the objectives of the Minimum Wages Act. What is the first objective? Legislative protection for the workers to receive a minimum wage can be considered as the hallmark of any progressive nation. See, what they're saying that the moment you decide the minimum wages for a particular set of workers, that is considered as a very big development step which the nation has taken towards the protection of its workers, right? Minimum Wages Act was passed for the welfare of the laborers. As you all know that it is passed for the welfare of the laborers. It has been enacted to secure the welfare of the workers in competitive market by providing for minimum limit of wages in certain employment. So it is basically to provide the dignity and to provide the uniformity and decency to the workers, right? And not key whatever you will do, this is the minimum amount of wage you are going to get. That was the basic idea behind providing this provision of what minimum like wages act, right? It is one of the fundamental premises of the decent work. In India, Minimum Wages Act 1948 provides for the fixation and enforcement of the minimum wages in respect of scheduled employments. It means once you get covered under this act, this brings a new thing that yes, you have to pay these many minimum wages to the laborers, right? The act applies to whole of India. The act came into force from 15 March 1948. So this is a main thing which you have to learn from the whole paragraph is 15 March 1948. Is it clear, everyone? Yes. Now, what do you mean by wages, everyone? Define the wages. This is the only main definition which you have to learn, major definition, right? Wages means all the remunerations capable of being expressed in the terms of money is expressed or implied, which includes HRA but does not include. It means wages includes your basic wage plus HRA, house rent allowance, but it does not include what? The value of HRA, supply of light, water, medical attendance, or any other amenity or any other services excluded by the general or special order of the appropriate government. Are you getting the point? So these are the things which are not going to be the part of your wages. So it includes house rent allowance, but it does not include the value of HRA, supply of water and light, and medical attendance which is provided to you, or any other kind of amenity which is excluded by the which government? By the special order of the appropriate government. Next, any contribution paid by the employer to the pension fund, it is not included. Provident fund, it is not included, or any kind of ESI, it is not included. Any traveling allowance or the value of the traveling concession is not included. Any sum paid to the person employed to defray special expenses, not included. Any gratuity payable is not included. So what are the things not included? PF is not included, pension is not included, ESI is not included, bonus is not included, special expenses are not included, traveling allowance is not included, any traveling concession is also not included. Only what is included? HRA, house rent allowance is included. Clear? Next point. Who is responsible to fix the minimum wages and when? Obviously, who will fix the minimum wages? The appropriate government. Are you getting the point? The responsibility of fixing the minimum wage lies with the appropriate government, and appropriate government is responsible for fixing the minimum rates of wages payable to the employees as per part 1 and part 2 of the schedule. Are you getting the point? And to review these wages at such intervals not exceeding 5 years the minimum rate of wages. So they are saying that once the appropriate government will decide your minimum wages at the interval of every 5 years, these minimum wages are going to get revised. Are you getting the point? Appropriate government may refrain from fixing minimum rate of wages in respect of any scheduled employment in which there are in whole state less than 1000 employees. Now they are saying that the appropriate government will not fix the minimum wages for that particular whole state where less than 1000 employees are there, less than 1000 employees. If it is 1000 and more, then the appropriate government would love to what do you say, decide the minimum wages of that particular whole state. Appropriate government decides what? It decides the minimum time rate, minimum piece rate, a guaranteed time rate, overtime rate. Are you getting the one? You all know that in the costing, you might all have done. There are two types of workers basically. One is known as time rated workers and one is known as piece rated workers. So what is the minimum time rate and what is the minimum piece rate? What is the minimum guaranteed time rate and what is the overtime rate? That is going to be decided by the appropriate government. Is it clear, everyone? Now, in fixing or revising the minimum rates of wages under this section, what are the things to be considered? For first of all, different minimum rate of wages may be fixed for different scheduled employment, different class of work, adults, adolescent, children, apprentices, and different localities. So they are saying that wage rates are not going to be same for everyone. For the children, it will be different. For the women, it will be different. For the particular type of employment, it will be different. For the particular type of work, it will be different. And for the particular type of locality, it will be different. So it means Minimum Wages Act is saying that the minimum wages are going to be dependent upon in which locality you are working, which kind of scheduled employment you are doing, what you are you a children or are you a child, a adolescent or an adult worker or a male or a female. It also depends upon what class of work you are doing. So different wage rates are fixed for the different class of people, right? Next one. Minimum rate of wages may be fixed by any one or more of the wage rate period, namely by hour, by day, by month, or by such other larger wage period as may be prescribed. They are saying that it can be a hourly wages, it can be a daily wages, it can be a weekly wages, it can be a monthly wages, or any specified wages which they are looking for. Any minimum wage of wage fixed or revised by the appropriate government in respect of scheduled employments under Section 3 may consist of basic rate of wages, special allowances at the rate to be adjusted, basic rate of wages with or without the cost of living allowance, and the cash value of concessions in respect of supplies and essential commodities at concessional rate where so authorized, or all-inclusive rate allowing for basic rate, the cost of living allowance, and the cash value of the concession. So these are the three different types of minimum wages which can be decided by the appropriate government. So basically in this chapter what we are learning that yes, to protect the minimum decency of the wages and the salaries to these particular laborers, this act has been brought into existence where the appropriate government plays a very important role in deciding your minimum wages, everyone. Is it clear to all of you? Yes. Now, what is the procedure for fixing and revising the minimum wage? Now see, look at the whole step-by-step procedure. In fixing the rate of wages in respect of any scheduled employment for the first time, first we are going to learn for the first time, then what will happen? Appropriate government shall either appoint as many committees and subcommittees as it consider necessary to hold inquiries and advise it in the respect of such fixation and revision. They are saying that if whenever the appropriate government is trying to fix the minimum wages, they will appoint some committees, they will appoint some subcommittees, and what is the work of these committees and subcommittees which are appointed by the government, appointed by the appropriate government, is to give the suggestions, is to give the do the inquiries, is to give the advice how much minimum fixation or revision should take place. So these committees and subcommittees appointed by the appropriate government are going to advise to the government how much should be the minimum wage, and this is a minimum wage should be fixed and revised accordingly. So their work is to do the inquiries, their work is to do the give the suggestions. Now, once the committees and subcommittees have given the suggestions, what we are going to do, we are going to publish that in the official notification. Now, by notifying in the official gazette, public its proposal for the information of the persons likely to be affected thereby and specify a date not less than 2 months from the date of notification on which proposals will be taken into considerations. So once the advices, inquiries and fixation has taken place by the advice of the committees and subcommittees, we are going to publish this minimum wages proposal by giving a notification in the official gazette at least 2 months before it is going to get fixed, so that the people who are having the objections on these minimum wages can raise their objections. So we are giving at least 2 months time period to get it implemented. It is not going to be implemented on the spot. It will be implemented after 2 months. Are you getting the point? Next one. After considering the advice of the committee or committee is appointed, the appropriate government shall by notification in the official gazette fix or case may be revised the minimum rate of wages until and unless such notification otherwise provided shall come in force on expiry of 3 months from the date of its issue. Now, the first time period was to invite the objections. Are you getting the point? First time period was to invite the objections. If you have any objections, if you have any suggestions, if you have any advices, so that within 2 months you can raise and we will try to incorporate. But once it is fixed and once it is revised, it will be again published in the official gazette with the new rates and new revisions, and it shall come into the force from the expiry of 3 months from the date of the issue. So say for example, if it is issued on the 1st April, it will come into the existence from 1st August. So April month, May month, June month, sorry, from 1st July. April month, May month, June month, 3 months time period will be given to you. The new wages will be applicable from the end of the 3rd month. It means from the beginning of the 4th month, the new wages and new revisions will be applicable. But first 2 months, don't get confused here. The first 2 months are to invite the objections and proposals and considerations. These are the 3 months given to you for the applicability. So revision and fixation will finally take place after 3 months from the date of fixation. Clear? Next one. Can the wages be paid in kind? So they are saying that no. Wages can only be paid in cash. Now see, minimum wages payable under this act shall be paid in cash, right? Where it has been a custom to pay the wages wholly or partly in kind, the appropriate government may specify in official gazette that it can be paid in kind. But yes, some of the areas are there, some of the localities are there, some of the scheduled employments are there where there is a culture they are going to pay the wages in the form of kind or in the form of partially kind or fully in kind. Then in that case, central government may allow, the appropriate government may allow to pay those wages in kind. Otherwise, they are required to be paid in cash. If the appropriate government is of the opinion that provision should be made for the supply of essential commodities at concession rates, then it by notification the provision such supplies at concession rate. They are saying that sometimes we need to work more for the benefit of what? Laborers and wages. Now, what the central government may do, what the appropriate government may do, the appropriate government may declare some essential commodities like dals, pulses, cereals, atta, flour, all these things. So the flour, all these things they may allow, they may treat it as a essential commodities, or they may allow these commodities to be available to these laborers in the form of kind at concessional rates. So giving, say for example, 100 rupees per kg moong dal is going on, but that is available to them for 20 rupees per kg. So 80 rupees of discount we are giving them. That is also called nothing but paying them the tribute or giving them the benefit in the form of kind. So yes, wages can also be paid in the form of kind, and it can be paid in the form of provision of essential commodities at a which rate? At a very convenient and concessional rate. Everyone clear? Now, payment of minimum wages rate of minimum rate of wages, where in respect of any scheduled employment the employer shall pay to every employee at a rate not less than minimum rate. So remember one thing, what is the minimum rate fixed by the notification? Employer should pay at least that much minimum rate. Nothing contained in this section shall affect the provisions of the Payment of Wages Act 1936. Now, what are the roles of the advisory board? You all know that so many committees and subcommittees were made. Now we are going to understand their roles. Section 7 of the Act provides that the purpose of coordinating the work of committees and subcommittees and advising the appropriate government generally in the matter of fixing and revising the minimum rate of wages, the appropriate government shall appoint an advisory board. Now they are saying that those committees and those subcommittees which have been appointed to give the advice to the central government or the appropriate government in fixing and revising the minimum wage, for them, central government or the appropriate government may appoint one board. That board is known as advisory board. Advisory board has no functioning of quasi-judicial nature. Their recommendation and decision is not binding on the state government, but the same remains only a recommendation and nothing more than that. Advisory boards are not the one who are going to decide it. They are going to only suggest it. They are only going to advise it. State governments are under no obligation to take the suggestions 100%. So if the state government feels that the suggestions given by the advisory board are not at all advisable or are not at all acceptable, state government or the central government may reject those proposals. Remember, advisory board name itself is that its role is only to give the advices. Central Advisory Board. Section 8 of the Act provides that for the purpose of advising the central government and state government in the matters of the fixation of revision of minimum rates of wages and other wages, for coordinating the work of advisory board, the central government shall appoint a central advisory board. Are you getting the one? Now, central advisory board is directly going to give the advices to the central government and state government, and to also coordinate the work of the advisory board. So there is one advice. There are some committees and subcommittees. On the committees and subcommittees, we have an advisory board. On the advisory board, we have the central advisory board, and that central advisory board will be directly appointed by whom? Central government. Are you getting the point? Central Advisory Board shall consist of the persons to be nominated by central government, representing employers and employees in the scheduled employments, who shall be equal in number, and independent person not exceeding 1/3 of the total number of members. So they are saying that who is going to be the part of Central Advisory Board. Some people will come in this board who are the representatives of employers. Some people will come in this board who are the representative of employees. Sir, why we need two category of the people? Because the one has to pay and the one has to receive. So we wanted the people from that category who are going to pay, that is called employer. We want some people from that category who are going to receive, that is called employee. And we need some independent, neutral, impartial, unbiased people, and they should not be less than 1/3 of the total composition of the Central Advisory Board. Now, one of such independent persons shall be appointed as a chairman. Now, not from the employer side, not from the employee side, we are not going to employ any chairman from either of these two sides, either employer and employee. What is the reason? Because if we'll employ either employer as a chairman or employee as a chairman, it will be a partiality. So we want the chairman of this board from the persons who are independent and neutral. Is it clear? Yes, sir. What are the deductions that can be made from the wages? The following deductions can be made from the wages, that is fines, absence from duty, damage or loss of goods entrusted to employees, loss of money for which he is required to account, and house accommodation supplied by the employer, such amenities and services supplied by the employer. So these are the various deductions. Like we all know that in the previous topic, in the bonus chapter, we have also understand that the employer has a right to make some deductions. So these are the deductions who can make employer. What are the deductions? Fines, absence from duty, damage or loss of goods entrusted to the employed persons, or loss of money for which he is required to account, where the loss is directly attributable to the neglect, or house accommodation services which are provided by the employer, such amenities and services which are provided by the supplier, right? Advances or adjustments, income tax, any court order, repayment, payment to cooperative society, loan advance by the employer, payment of insurance premium, adjustment of amount, written authorization of employed person. So these are the or if you are making any contribution to the National Defense Fund, Prime Minister Relief Fund, loans granted or house building. So these are the various deductions which are authorized by the employer to deduct from the minimum wages of an employee. Prior approval of the inspector or any other official authorized in writing before making such deductions, unless the employee given his consent in writing to such a deduction. So remember, prior approval of the authorized officer is required before making such a deduction. But remember, you cannot deduct more than 75% of the such wages of an employer. Cannot deduct more than 75% of the such wages of an employer. to consumer cooperative stores run by the cooperative society. What they are saying, that total amount of deduction from the wages shall not exceed 75% of such wages where such deductions are wholly or partly made for payment to consumer cooperative stores run by the cooperative society. If you are making the payment to consumer cooperative stores, then maximum 75% of their wages can be deducted. But in any other case, if you are not making any contribution to the consumer society store cooperative stores, then in that case maximum 50% of the deduction. Remember one thing, your salary is 10,000 rupees per month. Out of that 7,500 if they will deduct, or 5,000 they will deduct, you will get with a very minimum amount to live for in that 1 month. That's the reason maximum 75% if you're making a contribution. Other cases may only and only 50%. If the total amount of deductions have to be made period from the wages exceed the limit, the excess shall be carried forward and recovered from the wages of the succeeding period, or the wages period in such number of installment may be necessary. In case your deductions are more than 75% or 50%, then that excess amount will be carried forward and will be deducted in the next wages period or in the next cycle. Clear everyone? Now, describe the procedure for an employee to claim the short payment of the wages or non-payment of the wages. Say for example, employer is not paying the wages to the employee. What he will do, if there is any short payment or wages at the overtime, may be claimed by the employee himself or through a legal practitioner or any official registered trade union authorized by him. So in case you are not being paid your wages or you are being short paid, then in that case you can claim it by your own, or by hiring a legal practitioner, or by hiring any official of the registered trade union. For this purpose, who is the appropriate government for you? Who is going to take care of your case? Any commissioner of workmen compensation, any officer of central government excise functions, or as a labor commissioner for the any religion, any officer of the state government not below the rank of the labor commissioner. So first of all, any commissioner for the workmen compensation, or any officer of the central government exercising the functions as a labor commissioner for any region, any officer of the state government or not below the rank of labor commissioner, any other officer with the experience of justice of civil court as a stipendiary magistrate. So you have to remember these words. The claim shall be presented to the authority by the employee within 6 months. So make sure that you have 6 months to register your claim. Are you getting the point? Authority may accept the claim beyond the 6 months if it is satisfied that applicant has a sufficient reason. Say for example, within 6 months you are unable to make a claim, then it doesn't mean that the authority will not accept your claim. If you have a sufficient reason, if you can show to the authority that this was a justified reason why I was unable to file the claim within 6 months, then your claim can be accepted even beyond 6 months. Is it clear everyone? Yes or no? Yes. How is overtime wages fixed as per the Minimum Wages Act? Section 14 subsection 1 provides that where an employee whose minimum rate of wages is fixed under this act by the hour, by the day, or by the such longer period as may be prescribed, work on any day in the excess of the number of hours constituting a normal working day, employer shall pay him for every hour or part of an hour so worked in excess or over rate fixed under this act and under any law for appropriate for timing in force, whichever is higher. They are saying that, say for example, you are doing any overtime. Say for example, it is fixed that you have to do 8 hours in a day, but you are doing more than 8 hours a day. Then in that case, how much remuneration you deserve? You deserve a remuneration either which is fixed by the what do you say, under the act, or it is fixed by the appropriate authority, whichever is higher. But generally, how much works, how many hours you have to work in a day? Suppose there are 9 working hours in a day. So see, when a worker works for more than 9 hours in a day, you know that this is the minimum number of hours you have to work, 9 hours in a day. In case you are working more than 9 hours a day or 48 hours a week, 9 hours a day or 48 hours a week, then he shall be liable to an entitlement of overtime wages. And how much he will get? In case of employment in agriculture, 1.5 times the ordinary wage. So suppose you are getting 500 rupees per hour, then in that case it will be 750 rupees per hour. 1.5 times, 1.5 times of your normal wages. So if it is 500 rupees per hour, you will get 750 rupees per hour. That is 1.5 times. In case of any other scheduled payment, double the ordinary rate. So यहाँ पे if it is 500 rupees, you will get 750, and if it is 500 rupees here, you will get what? 1,000 rupees. So that is nothing but bringing an end to your concept relating to payment of minimum wages act. Now what are the defined, these are the various definitions. You have to understand what do you mean by cost of living index, schedule employment and contracting out, under what circumstances fine may be imposed on an employed person. So fine may be imposed on an employed person if he provides any damage or injury to the employer, obviously, because during the employment you all do the employment comes with the character. You show the poor character, fines will be imposed on you. What are the obligations of the employer under what are the obligations of the employer under this act? Obligation of the employer under this act is to keeping in mind the maintenance of registers and records. He has to maintain some registers and records. He has to maintain the exhibit the notices in the workplace for the employees. Whatever the new circulars of the government will come, those notices he has to pay it. He has to also issue the wage books and wage slips to the employees employed in respect of minimum wages act. Remember, registers and returns, notice boards, and wage books and wage slips, and maintaining such a register and records are mandatory. There is no exception to the mandatory obligation, including any employer, and miscellaneous provision. So these are the various extra things you have to learn and make sure that you are getting perfect with this particular act. So this was a very small act. I hope you liked it. So thank you so much everyone for lending your patient ears. I hope I made you revise this particular act in a proper manner. Bye bye everyone. Take care. See you guys in the next video.